I'm proud to call Nebraska my home. And I became a U.S. citizen last year, which was pretty cool.
Growing up on a farm and having the financial pressures, I've got a real respect for people that are in trouble too. Being able to appreciate that, I think, is really important for being in the auction business, because sometimes really great people are having really bad days.
I'm not afraid to be the first one to try something. I'm the one running down the road like, what's down here?
If it wasn't for all the things that happened in my life, those are the things that helped me have the confidence to actually start my entrepreneurial career.
All right here, I got a priceless thing. And how about my name's Aaron McKee, year of 2015.
I'm Michelle Fates. I was the 2016 class.
Hi, I'm Luis Lopez, class of 2014.
I'm Tim Donnelly. I'm in the charter class of Pipeline. I grew up in Kansas City, the youngest of 6 in a big Irish Catholic family. We still get together routinely, still to this day, walking distance to my siblings' houses. I do remember some things from my childhood that absolutely stayed with me. It's the strong foundation that my parents gave to me. 6 p.m. dinners every single night. We never missed church. The respect that they had for faith in our family, it instilled that foundation in me that I share with my wife and children and even our work.
So I was born in Guatemala City, Guatemala. My dad grew up very poor, as well as my mom. I think my mom didn't have her first pair of shoes until she was like 4 or 5 years old. By the time I was born, my dad had, become very successful in the country and was an advisor to the president. I grew up with bodyguards. I had 2 guys with machine guns following me everywhere I went, because Guatemala as a whole was not the safest country to be in. When I was 7 years old, he left it all to become a missionary. They experienced poverty as children, wealth as adults. We experienced wealth as children, and all of us went back to almost extreme poverty in Belize. I've never seen my parents regret that decision. They felt compelled to believing in what they considered was their calling.
Little Michelle was definitely a nerd. I was a shy kid around most people, pretty outspoken around my family. My mom was a chemist, so I absolutely had a strong interest in science when I was young. My dad was a salesman, and actually, when I pitch my company, I can hear a lot of that salesman side of the family. So yeah, the scientific side coming from my mom, but then also the persuasion, the public speaking from my dad.
I grew up in Bellefonte with my parents, and 100 yards from my house was my grandparents, and that was on ground that was a quarter of a mile from where my great-great-great-grandparents homesteaded. We spent all our time working together as a family. If you'd asked me when I was a senior in high school what I was going to do, I would say I was going to be a farmer.
I would say that at the dinner table it was somewhat friendly. I think out in the backyard it was ultra competitive. So I remember my closest oldest brother. He was the Bobby Knight of my upbringing. He made sure that I didn't slack. And I would hit golf balls in the backyard when there's snow on the ground. But I had to shovel the backyard so that I had a green and a tee box to hit from. And he instilled that competitive nature in me.
My older sister has Down syndrome. Whatever family you're born into, you just take as normal, right? So that wasn't anything that really felt all that different to me growing up. She never needed my protection, even though that was my instinct. She's always been much cooler than me. She's a Special Olympics basketball, baseball. She's going on dates, so she's the cooler older sister, definitely.
So music, to one way or another, has always been part of a life. I got my first really good bass when I was a senior in high school. I just loved the sound. I would put it on the side of the bed and I would sleep on the other one. My dad used to play the guitar before, my grandfather as well. My maternal grandmother and my mother both sing. No, as a matter of fact, music is how I met my wife. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be marrying Amy in Guatemala. This will be the first time that our family comes together from many parts of the world in 28 years.
My whole community would say that I was always probably pretty aggressive in what I was doing and probably didn't fit in the box perfectly. I did not want to be a pain in the ass. I wanted to be a good kid. So when I was in like the 5th grade, I got put into a modified education program. Ultimately ended up a grade ahead, so I was young in my class, and I left when I was just 17 to K-State, studying mechanical engineering.
My brothers and sisters would describe me as athletically gifted, which I will deny because I worked my ass off. Got a scholarship to the University of Tulsa, played on the varsity golf team, was a #1 golfer my freshman year, simultaneous to me becoming the co-founder of the entrepreneurial club. I was also transitioning into leadership roles in the fraternity, and it would be hard for them to coexist. So I decided to forego my last year on the golf team to be president of the fraternity, and that enabled me to learn a lot about leadership.
I hadn't heard of neuroscience until I got to undergrad and I saw they had a neuroscience program. Once I realized it was the study of the brain that really appealed to me, because knowing that my sister had Downs, I had this concept of the brain in ways that it could be different. I love studying the development of the nervous system. I think that's the coolest thing in all of biology. The fact that the human brain is this really magnificent system. It's beautiful. It's what we can use to build buildings and paint and, build civilizations. It's awesome, and it all develops from a single cell.
When I was 11, I moved to Nebraska. My dad his term had finished there. His organization decided to bring him to the U.S. People are very nice in Nebraska, which in the Midwest as a whole. And it was just a very cool environment to be in. We weren't afraid of violence, which is definitely a change for the better for us. We finally, settled down and were able to become much more established and rooted in a community. Went to the University of Nebraska at Omaha. I was never undecided. I always knew I wanted to go for business and become an executive at some point.
And I kind of remember pretty direct talk with my dad, like, you can come home. He said it would probably be easier for you. Your life might be better if you didn't come home. This is not a lot of fun right now. I never really thought about having a job, because for 7 generations, nobody had a job. So I started doing things to make money that wasn't farming. I unlocked cars. I rented out hot tubs. I did go to auctioneer school. Did still keep some of my cattle and some of my ag operations. Well, I met my wife, and that got me organized.
My fraternity brothers, actually, one of them in particular, was the reason why I decided to quit my job in 1999 and actually take the leap of faith. The most important was that I had the buy-in from my wife. She said at dinner one time that the only way that we're going to create wealth is if we own something. And she says, go start your own company.
After 1 semester in management, I met these 2 guys, and he was looking for someone who spoke Spanish. And he offered me a job, and what I didn't know at the time was that this was a startup. And this is before startups were even a cool thing to do. Did that startup for 2 years. After that, I left and asked my brother to become my business partner.
And I had found this building that was in a tax district that was going to be torn down. I said, well, maybe I could start an auction company. Because I've been to auction school, it was something else to do. Being an auctioneer is really cool because it's economics at play. You're setting a price and something's sold, and you can be very transparent. And we could say however broken it was or whatever was wrong with it, you could be honest. We weren't going to represent it wrongly, and that made a lot of sense to me.
I had joined the Bio-Entrepreneurship Corps at WashU, which was a student-run group focused on training scientists on how to think about starting a biotech company. The closer we looked at this JC virus diagnostic, the more we learned about it, the more we realized this was a clear problem with a scientific solution that was available. It just needed someone to do it. It seemed like the perfect way for me to bridge science directly into helping people.
There was a part of me that was emotionally connected to the cause of the senior living industry, and that is the fact that families are going through stress as their loved ones age. In my case, my dad had Alzheimer's, and my mom was a caregiver until she couldn't handle it anymore. And so my siblings and I had to go find a solution. Going through that definitely had an emotional connection for us trying to fix a broken industry.
Everyone was like, don't go into healthcare. It is the hardest, most possible thing. It sucks, and it's going to change a lot in the next coming years. So when everyone was running away from it, we were like, dude, let's charge towards it. It is the battle of David versus Goliath. And sometimes it's 20 Goliaths that come at us, but you know what? Pick up our rocks and beat the crap out of them. Early on in the pilot studies, we could see what effect it had on the lives of doctors, and at the end of the day, it's the impact that had on the life of a patient and living a better life. You know, it's like once you see it once, you can't unsee it.
I feel like entrepreneurs that are in smaller communities are disadvantaged because they're not around people that tell them that they can do things that really can be done. So people that don't have some enlightenment or some outside influences that let them see that are required to approach business differently. There's a work ethic and a understanding of entrepreneurship, especially in agriculture, because it's all entrepreneurship. It's every day and it's the whole family for a long time that entrepreneurship is the only way that people make money.
There are plenty of PhD students who are trying to figure out what they want to do next, and a lot of them will talk about how great entrepreneurship seems or how they think that they might have a great idea. But founding a company is scary. That's terrifying, especially when academia is very rigid. It was one of the rare few that actually decided to roll the dice on that. I had laboratory space in an incubator area in St. Louis. So there were all these people that I thought were great, and I loved what they were doing, and I loved their companies, and all of a sudden they all were saying, hey, if you heard about Pipeline, you should apply for Pipeline.
It gives me great pride to say that I was in the charter class. My first year, and actually Pipeline's first year, it was just us carving our own little culture, and we did it with one another.
I didn't realize how big Pipeline was until after I got into it. I show up to Innovator of the Year, and I was like, holy crap, this is a lot bigger than I thought it would be. So I remember texting my parents, and I was like, I don't know what the heck I got myself into. This thing looks really important.
Entrepreneurs are the type of person that will see a problem and will just say, I'm going to solve this problem. I don't care about the barriers in the way. I'm angry there's a problem, and I'm going to fix it. And that's a pretty specific personality type. And so if you can get around a bunch of other people who feel the same way as you do about problems in the world, that's incredibly inspiring.
When I came into Pipeline, it was really nice to be around people that were both like me and that they were Midwest-esque, high-integrity people, and that they were also not going to say immediately that it was crazy to go do something of a bigger scale.
And the thing with Pipeline is it's genuine diversity of everything. I mean, whether it's race, gender, religion, but especially backgrounds. And we all have unconventional stories on how we ended up doing what we do, but at the end of the day, we do share a similar thing, and is that we're all following our purpose and our higher calling.
Getting to be around Pipeline people and hearing what the problems are in their industries and how they're tackling that is inspirational and has been the most motivating for me in any part of my career. So I want to keep coming back to Pipeline.
And when you think about what are you doing business for, why would you want to make a gazillion dollars? What would you do with it? I think that would be really great to help make the world a better place by helping people do better business. And so what kind of places would do that? Well, Pipeline is an obvious answer.
You know, Pipeline was there from day one, building a culture, teaching one another how to deal with the competition, dealing with adversity, scaling a business for the right reasons that leads people to do things for the greater good. I am Pipeline.
I am Pipeline.
I am Pipeline.
Nosotros somos Pipeline.